It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So, what's that painting back there?
This is actually a rug of different Jewish symbols and different holiday symbols.
I love it. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
It's actually a rug.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Before we get into your work as a PowerPoint design expert, I want to know we're hitting the 5 year anniversary of the pandemic and right? And hopefully we're all forgetting, but at the same time it was such a big deal. How much of living through that time period has affected the way that you approach work and life today?
Oh, that's a great question. So at the time, I was doing sales training during COVID, and a lot of my work, all my work, in fact, was in PowerPoint of how we communicate with the sellers and with the leaders, and how they go to customers, and how we make their communications as concise and directed as possible, and also as engaging as possible. I coined a phrase, what I call parking lot training during that time of with our sellers or at the customer's location, what's the least amount of information they need to know before they go into the customer in that parking lot? If that's the only time they have to review the training information. So COVID didn't slow down our work because we were considered an essential company, but it gave me a chance to really think about how we communicate with the sellers more effectively. How do we get them the information they need as concisely and quickly and as engaging as possible? And so, taking from those lessons and those experiences, I've been about 20 years in training and development and took those experiences and those learnings and really worked on my communication skills in PowerPoint and really spent time practicing on different presentations, took time YouTubing, Instagramming, learning it, coming back to it, sleeping on it, fixing it, really turned myself into an expert of how to communicate more efficiently and more concisely to make sure that people's messages are as clear as they need to be and they get what they need in the shortest amount of time.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis and to simplify this to a certain degree. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. Let's say sixth graders. It's career day. The kid in the back of the room is really curious and is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Yeah, this
answer?
happened at my daughter's high school career day.
Yeah.
And I kept saying to the high schoolers, I design professional presentations, and nobody understood. And the last half hour, I said, I make slideshows, and they go, slideshows? You make slideshows? I said, I make professional slideshows, and they're like, that is the coolest thing ever. And I realized I wasted an hour and a half, and I had a slideshow demo going, and I wasn't speaking their language. So I make slideshows. I make amazing corporate presentations.
So, what did you want to be when you were young, when you were in grade school?
I wanted to be an international lawyer. I spoke several languages and I really liked the law and I wanted to travel. And one thing led to the next. And I was good at languages and I graduated with a degree in Spanish. And my father was a teacher, my mother was an artist, and it turned into just a career of training and development, not really focused on languages
Yeah.
or law. And so it kind of really evolved. I'm that person who doesn't really do anything connected to the degree they got in, or I didn't even know this was an industry or some, I didn't even know this was a thing about 2 years ago.
Wow.
So, like I said, I've been working at training and development and sales for most of my career. And I didn't realize this was a thing 2 years ago. And it's an entire industry
Yeah.
of just presentation designers. So, I'm not a graphic designer. I don't do marketing or branding or logos. I don't even do Google slides or keynotes. I specifically just do PowerPoint. And I think PowerPoint is so underrated of how people use it. I think we all kind of think of PowerPoint sometimes as antiquated and outdated, but it's really how you can use the tool. So by me specializing in it, I'm able to really bring forth all the great benefits it has and show you that ultimately it shouldn't really even look like a PowerPoint. Um, and it's the most universal across all different platforms.
I am amazed at how long PowerPoint has lasted. When I was in college, I was getting into sports broadcasting, and I had some philosophical things that kept me from that. So when I got out of school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and one of my first jobs was working for a home health consulting agency, and I was doing newsletters and graphic design, and I got into PowerPoint. And then I
Mhm.
went to an architectural engineering firm, and I would travel with architects and engineers and do PowerPoint. And I remember doing a lot of those and thinking that same thing. I'm going to make this look like something that's not Microsoft, you
Yeah.
know?
And it's amazing how long the tool has been around. And you'd think, and I know there's a lot of AI tools out there now, but you'd be amazed at how people still don't realize the potential of how great it can be. So there are still PowerPoints out there that look like they're from 1998,
Yeah.
and you keep thinking like, how can it still be this bad? How can people still make PowerPoints like this? But, it's not everybody's skill. And so I've been able to hone in and say, this is what I'm good at. This is what I love to do. It's combining my love of artistic expression and visual storytelling with what I call word dieting. So word dieting is a phrase I made up of, I guess, due to my impatience that and given the fact that people only spend 3 to 5 seconds on a slide, what do you want people to walk away with from your slide? So with word dieting, I'll take a look at your presentation and obviously with permission from the client, cut, 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 cut. And I've actually developed some best practices and some practice ideas that people can do to start cutting back their own content. But really, that idea of simplifying and then pairing it with the right kind of visuals to sell that story and make your message stick.
I see it as the poetry of the presentation world. There's a level of it
Yeah.
that, you have to kind of work with and pare down and take all the words and things out to get it to be most impactful, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is an art. I think it's knowing that balance. I think, one of my pet peeves, and I'm sure most people are too, is too much information on a slide. So again, going back to 3 to 5 seconds on a slide, what do you want people to remember? So I just had a conversation with a client with a lot of data. And I said, what is the one number you want them to walk away with? That's the number we're going to put on the slide. We're going to make it look great, and you're going to talk to it. And you can hand out the data as an appendix or a handout afterwards, but what is the message you want them to walk away with? Because again, we've all seen those slides with charts and data and graphs, and you're just like, you're wasting my time
Yep.
because you're just wasting my time. And so I try to design presentations that I would want to sit through. I say, if you've lost me in the first 3 seconds, then I'm out.
Yep.
So word dieting is not only about cutting the clutter, it's about knowing, to your point, a little bit about the art of it, of what's redundant, what's repetitive, what is unnecessary. Don't waste your audience's time. Don't make your audience do math. If you've got a statistic that says 2/3, just write 66%. Don't make me do math while reading your presentation because it may not seem like it, but you've now required an extra half a second of thinking that I have to do with your audience. And don't do that to me. Don't.
Yeah.
I didn't come to do math. So
Yep.
it's really about simplifying, getting that message. We've all heard the advice of less is more. Um, you know, Limit your bullet points and all that, but it's not even about the bullet points. It's not about icons. It's about simplifying your message.
Yep.
So what do you want people to walk away with? And so that I'm really good at that, at kind of, like I said, word dieting and cutting down the clutter.
So take me back to your childhood. I know you wanted to be an international, business lawyer and you wanted to have a different line, but you're in the art of PowerPoint now. Take me back. What were the foundational seeds that were planted into you to build this acumen, to build this skill level?
So I think it goes a lot back to, like I said, my parents. My father was a teacher, so from that idea of, and that's really what led to, I think, my career in training and development is learning, helping people grow and succeed. And so I think that seed was planted in terms of what are the tools you need to help people succeed and to learn. So with every presentation, it could be, we have to ask ourselves when we start out with a client, what is your outcome? What is your desired outcome? What do you want your audience to do differently? What do you want them to know differently? What do you want them to, what behavior are we trying to change, if any? So I think that comes from kind of a teaching educational background as well. And my mother was a fine artist, a painter. She still is. And I think there's where maybe that visual comes in, that visual seed that was planted of looking at things and how we express ourselves through visual design. So I think when you take a look at those two backgrounds, and my mother was a business manager, and I think hearing, growing up and how do you do things better, faster, quicker, and the efficiency is also kind of what led me to that decluttering mentality of how can we do this better? How can we do this faster? So
So let me ask you this. I know when I was doing PowerPoint, a lot of PowerPoint professionally. It was in the late 90s and a little bit into the 2000s, and I'll dabble in it a little bit now.
Mhm.
But overall, what's the most impressive things that have changed about it from that 90s era of Bill Gates still being at Microsoft to right now in this modern era of AI and video, YouTube friendly world? What has changed?
So I think it's the advancement of all those technologies you mentioned. I think it's a lot more people are familiar with it. A lot of people know how to use it more. It's the most adaptable, universal tool. I think it just offers so many more tools and possibilities than some of the other platforms. I think, what we tend to get into kind of tricky areas where people like to overuse a lot of the different tools that it can offer. So I'll put video and I'll over animate and I'll put over transitions and yay, PowerPoint can do all of that. But I think it's the skill of knowing that balance of what is the right animations, what's the right transition. So I think it's taking all of the tools that they now can offer and knowing how to moderate that with the right messaging and your audience.
So how do you keep up with it? Do you just play with it when there's updates, when things happen, or do you read about it? Or how do you really keep up on that curve of what's going on with the program?
Yeah, so I read up on what changes might be happening in PowerPoint. I'm also part of a great designer community that we share updates with each other and different things that we've learned. So I've joined a great community of designers who kind of we help keep each other on our toes about the new updates as well.
Well, let me ask you this. What motivates you every day to wake up and to do this work that you do, to do it the best you can, and to also evolve as a human being yourself? What is that motivation every day for you?
Yeah, so I love the creativity part of it and I love solving problems. So, and every project is about 2 to 3 weeks. So I love the change of projects, the change of the different look, different feel, different industry. I wake up in the morning and say, what am I going to create today? So, what am I going to solve today? What am I going to create today? What kind of client is going to come across my plate? What industry? And it really is a new artistic challenge and, format challenge with every project. So I wake up in the morning going, what's going to come across my plate today that's going to look different and be different and sell differently.
So do you remember the first PowerPoint you did where you thought, okay, this makes sense. I want to keep doing this? It was kind of a breakthrough one.
Yeah. So when I was working on improving my skills in PowerPoint, working at the sales organization, I mentioned it to a friend of ours who was head of a volunteer emergency response program called Hustela, and he asked me to put together. He said, "Oh, this is something that you do. This is something you like to do." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, can you put together a couple of slides for me about teaching hospitals about what we do?" I said, "Sure." And I put together a couple of slides. And he goes, "You're really good at this. You should really do this full time." And I was like, "No, I've got a full time job." And he's like, "No, but you really like, why not? Why not? Just do it." And I was like, "You're right. Why not? Let's do it." And I did it as freelance on the side, like a side gig for the last year of my work. And then when I left the sales organization, we're looking for other jobs. And I said to my husband, "Hey, wait a minute. I've got this business all set up already. I love to do this." And I used to say, "I just want to sit and make PowerPoints all day. I do. I, I just want to make PowerPoints all day." And I said, "What if we just take this on the road and do it full time?" And my husband was right on board from the get go. And he was like, "Absolutely, let's do it." And that was the moment that I was like, this could actually be something.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't realize it was a whole niche industry. This could actually be something, and it's just been amazing. It's just the growth and the exposure and the community around it has just been amazingly supportive.
So what's been one of your favorite PowerPoints you ever made and why?
It was a keynote speaker that came to me around Thanksgiving. She reached out to me through LinkedIn and she said, "I'm giving a keynote speech in 4 days, 5 days. And I'm not the only one. There's another one, but I want it to be really wow and I want it to be amazing. And it's about artificial intelligence." And I said, "Okay, well, part of my standard process is send me your logos and your branding and your colors and your fonts you want." And she goes, "I don't have any of that. Just do whatever you want." Well, that's like a playground for people
Sure,
like me.
sure.
So I got to make it, it was going to be on a big screen. So I had to think about the colors on the big screen and what's going to project and what's going to really pop and the right animations, the right balance, the right transitions. You don't want to seem like you're just having fun with everything in the animations. And I really got to use some fun imagery, some fun colors. Yeah, I did some fun animations. Um, and we only had she was speaking in 5 days, so that meant I really only had 3 days or so to get it to her as a final version, so she can practice. And I spent about 10.5 hours on it. She had very minimal feedback. So within 2.5 days, she had a phenomenal product that she loved. And it was just the most creative one because I got to do with it what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I hit it on the mark with such minimal feedback. It was like, syntax changes that she was making, but I hit it on the mark. She knocked it out of the park. And it was just fantastic. So I think that was one of my most fun ones.
So what's the biggest risk that you've taken in your career?
I would say leaving a stable job
Yeah.
after 25 years and going out on my own. I have 3 kids, and I couldn't have done this when the kids were little. Then we pay for private school tuition. I couldn't have done it then. And you're building your career and building your family. But I'm 50 now, and my kids are grown and out, and financially, we're more stable. And so I think it's always a risk. But I think it's leaving that comfort zone and really saying, I think I can do this. I have the skills. I've gotten the feedback throughout my career that I make great slides, and people love what I do, and they love the conciseness and simplicity that I bring to each project in terms of communication. So it was really taking all of those voices that I've been hearing and saying, this could be something. I've always wanted to own my own thing. I think in my early 20s, I wanted to own my own bakery, but this is so much easier.
Yeah.
Owning a bakery is a whole different ball of wax. And actually, when I left my company, I approached a friend of mine who has her own business, and I said, am I crazy? Should I do this bakery thing? And she goes, well, I'll tell you, you're no spring chicken now like you were in your 20s. So do you really want to be on your feet for 7 hours a day at 6 a.m.? And I was like, no, 12 hours a day. So I'm much happier for my dining room making PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And I think it's just been the best decision I've made.
So let's say you run into that young version of you in a dream tonight when you were thinking about becoming a lawyer, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Focus on family.
Yeah.
International traveling is not conducive for families. Focus on and I think what you love to do changes over the years. So
Yeah.
I wanted to be this high powered. I think I had a vision of Diane Keaton in my head of, from the 80s and 90s movies of this corporate world and the gypsies downtown, walking downtown. And I think just focusing on family and what's the priority for your family. So traveling in a high pressure job is not it. So focusing on family, and you will eventually find something that will use your talents and skills that will enable you to be present for family.
So let's say you walk into a room of all of the clients that you've serviced throughout all these years, and they're all sitting in a room waiting for you to do a PowerPoint. But instead, you walk into the room, you turn the projector off, and you have to tell them a fun story, something fun about you that humanizes you, about you that they probably wouldn't have known or realized. What fun thing would you tell them?
Oh, this is an icebreaker in the meeting, Joe, that you asked me to do.
Oh no. Oh no.
Those 3 to 5 things. Um, Something interesting about me they wouldn't know. Oh,
Like a favorite place you've traveled to, an adventure, something like that.
yeah. In high school, I went to Japan, and it was totally. I went to public high school where a lot of my friends went to private school, and it was kind of out of the realm of reality for them. And so I went to Japan, and it enabled me to just discover a whole new culture that was completely out of my wheelhouse, completely out of my day to day, and really exposed me to different cultures. I was also, and from there I learned several languages and just learned to love to travel.
Did you
So,
do you like sushi?
yeah, I don't like raw fish, but I'll take the vegetable.
Okay, I just didn't know how good it was actually in Japan. I always want to go over there and do it because that would be my diet. I would completely convert to sushi all the time.
It's so funny.
So,
It's so
um,
funny.
so let me ask you this: of everything that you've done and accomplished in your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Oh, does it have to be professionally?
It can be anything.
It's gonna sound cliche, but it's really my 3 kids.
Yeah.
I think my 3 kids have been amazing. They've grown up to be outstanding, um, faithful, meaningful, kind, generous people. And I think that's your biggest job, your toughest job, and the job I'm most proud of.
So let's say we get off this call here and you get a phone call from Bill Gates and he says, I think we're going to pull the plug on PowerPoint. I think Google Slides has outdone us. I think the world has changed enough. I want you as an expert to convince me to keep this product going. What are you going to say to Bill Gates?
I'd say, Bill, there's so much potential in it. It's the most universal application across everything. It's everything everybody knows. You can outdo Google Slides and Canva and AI. And at the end of the day, there's still people in the back office who are using PowerPoint. Um, and I would just say it's still an invaluable tool, to, the most easiest to use for everybody.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm business oriented. I think I'm lighthearted at the same time and funny. I like to have a good time. In my older age, I don't take life as seriously as I used to when I was younger. Um, and I just like to have a good time. I like to laugh a lot.
So if anyone wants to hire you, see samples of your work, reach out, they have questions, they want to know more, where is the best place to go?
To my website, ocdesigns.info. And there's actually a link there for the word dieting that we talked about earlier. There's a PDF they can download and some tips of how to reduce clutter in your slides. But I would say you can see my full portfolio. There's also some befores and afters of what I can do. Client testimonials as well. So ocdesigns.info.
Okay, excellent. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.